and gentlemen across our Kyber Empire, we're starting up 2023 with some high-level domination and excitement. Hopefully, whatever goals you have set for 2023, we're going to knock them dead. We're going to comp ship. We're going to go even further, my friends. It's great having you here. Feel free to like, subscribe to today's video where we're going to do something kind of fun. What's going to be the value of this? Probably next to zero. But you know what? Sometimes the most fun videos, they don't need to have value on them. We're going to rank every single zone inside of Marvel Snap from best to worst. I compiled all of the zones that we currently have. Shout out to Marvel Snap Zone. One of the best resources out there, honestly, for making this a little easier to get all the little icons to do this. We have a little tier list here. I'll leave a link down below if you want to go rank them alongside with me. The reason why I don't think there's gonna be a lot of value from this video is mainly because zones, they come and go, right? Some of these zones I never even seen, and I've only been playing Marvel Snap for about a month or so now. This is my, about a month. Yeah, December is my first month playing Marvel Snap. Some of them I haven't seen, and it's gonna vary. The meta's gonna change, of course, and zones will come in and out, and then, but you know, the point of Marvel Snap I think makes it fun compared to other card games is that the zones adds variety. Unlike games like Yu-Gi-Oh that I played, you know, sometimes things get stale after a while. Not so much of Marvel Snap. It's always gonna be a different game, and no deck is free from whatever the RNG gods bestow upon you. So let me know down below what's your favorite, what's your worst, and let's get right into it. We're gonna start off with number one, Alter Depth. Now, kind of starting off here, I haven't seen this one. I think this is kind of cool. It's basically like a sacrificial table. When you play a card here, destroy it to get 2 energy the next turn. Imagine utilizing this on like Electro. You know, Electro, you kind of just want to get their reveal effect to get the 1 energy, and you want them gone. That's why things like Vormir, Death's Domain are a lot of fun. But if you can't get rid of Electro, get their 1 energy, and then you get 2 energy, man, this sounds like a lot of fun. I'm going to put this one probably, oh man, first one, all right, we might change as we go along. I'm gonna put this in B range because this is I like getting as many cards onto the field as possible. Moving on, Asgard. After turn 4, whoever's winning here draws 2 cards. Now, the thing about Asgard is this. Sometimes people, they like to load up on these zones that have like a time limit on them. And sometimes in that situation, they're gonna put cards that are probably not ideal, but they're just trying to get the bonuses. And while they're focused on one zone, you can go on another, or you can just ruin whatever play they got going on in that zone. Asgard, I feel like it's a decent zone. Let's put it in C. It's not the best zone, not the crazy zone, but if someone can win it and they didn't lose any momentum going for that zone, kind of the best of both worlds. There's a lot of stuff that can happen at play there. Next one, we have Asteroid M. When you play a 3 or 4 cards card here, move it here. So this one, Asteroid M, I have not seen this one. Now, some of these zones may be from when it was in beta, soft launch, and they just maybe took those zones out for whatever reason. This seems like it would be a little bit annoying. It's kind of the opposite of the Sanctum Sanctorum, where you can't put anything there. You're going to constantly put cards in this zone. So I think as long as you budget to make sure either one, you put cards that are not 3 or 4, so you can fill it up. So that way, when you want to place 3 or 4 cards, it doesn't get to that zone. I don't know. I think this one, I haven't played it, so this one, I might have a fully fleshed out opinion. I'm going to put this into the zone. Again, just my opinion on things. Next up, Atlantis. If you only have 1 card here, it has 5+ power. I'll be honest, I don't see this like making that much of a difference sometimes. Yeah, usually people try to put as many cards onto the field. You know, it's not a bad zone per se. I just don't feel like it when I see it, it's like, oh, okay, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, maybe it's good if you just place maybe a Dino on there and then you just get that extra +5 power on it. I think it depends how many cards your opponent plays that zone, how many cards you plan on putting in that zone, and how many cards did both of you guys put in the zone. I don't think it's not a trash location. It's not a game-changing location. Let's put it in C. Next up, Avengers Compound. On turn 5, all cards must be played here. So this one could be high risk. So if you know turn 5's coming, for example, one of my favorite things to do when I see, we have a till, we'll do that in a moment. We just jumped ahead. When I see Avengers Compound, sometimes I like to put Cosmonaut, because turn 5 and turn 6, big plays are about to happen, right? If you could put a Cosmonaut like on turn 4 and then just prevent whatever's going to happen on your opponent's side. Like one time I placed Cosmo, turn 5, they tried playing Hobgoblin. I stopped them, and they had to keep the Hobgoblin. They kept the -8, and they dipped out of there. This one, kind of, again, it's not as bad as Asteroid M. Again, putting it in C. I feel like I'm kind of being a little conservative of how I'm approaching these. It's not like crazy locations, but it's one of those locations that you know what's about to come, and you can make a lot of steps in advance and think about how to trick your opponent. I think we jumped ahead one. We have Attila in here. On turn 4, shuffle your... Oh, God, I hate these. All right, let me put it this way. Sometimes it's great when a Tillin works, because let's say you have a really bad hand and you want to just start all over again. It's happened to the best of us, right? But it sucks when you have a great hand and you get an absolutely trash one. Hit or miss? Oh man. All right, hit or miss. That sounds like a, you know, I'm putting it in D, even though it could be hit or miss depending on what's going on. You know, another way to look at it, imagine if you use Okoye, you juiced up your deck and then you shuffle. It's very situational. There's so many decks and compositions out there. Generally though, I'd say 8 out of 10 times when I see a Tillin, I'm not happy about it. That's just my take. Bar Sinister, easy A tier. In case you know Bar Sinister, I love all the Sinister locations. Tons of fun. When you play a Carter, fill this location with copies of it. I mean, this I think is peak theory crafting. One time I placed many Thors in here. You can duplicate tons of visions there. Sometimes you're gonna juice the power of a card you're about to play, and then you put them in Bar Sinister, and then you're just gonna be able to spread them around. Like imagine Shuri Vision, putting them in Bar Sinister, then spreading them around everywhere. Oh man, a lot of fun possibilities. Sometimes it could be annoying. You know, like sometimes people like to put Iceman or they like to put Scorpion in there, and then you just ruin your hand. Bar Sinister I think is one of my favorite locations inside the game. Moving on, Bar with no name. We got to keep a pace, or else this is gonna be like a 10-hour video at this rate. Whoever has the least power here wins. Now the only reason I like this zone is, well, actually 2 reasons. One, let's say it's the 3rd location, it hasn't been revealed yet, and your opponent's already placing cards there. Some people like to place cards in zones, they don't even know what they're about, and the zone reveals and you're already winning and you didn't have to do anything inside of that zone. The other reason why I like this is it makes negative cards very useful. So it makes Goblin, Hobgoblin, if you keep them on your side, Mr. Negative, cards that normally have a negative effect, you're gonna win this because your opponent's likely not gonna have a lot of negative cards in their hand. They don't want to place anything in that zone. This one, oh man, it's not a trash zone. It could be trash if you want to place cards and you're too scared to. It's the inverse of what we expect in Marvel Snap in terms of more power wins, less power is gonna win. Gosh, I feel like I'm gonna do a lot of C tier stuff. I'll put it in C tier, man. I have a feeling there's gonna be a lot of variety of how we rank these. Again, personal opinion. I don't think there's any meta advice or any knowledge to pull from this. Baxter Building. Baxter Building can be fun. Baxter Building. So when you're winning the zone, you're gonna get +3 power. In the other zone, again, kind of like some problems like we talked about with Asgard, where your opponent's gonna be they're gonna try to blitz down certain zones, and they might put cards that don't need to be there, and they're just doing it just for the sake of filling it up. But this at times, if you can keep in mind, final turn, all right, let's see if I can try to win this zone and add 3 in the other. It's kind of like basically a Mr. Fantastic, right? That's why it's got the Fantastic Four logo on there. It's a nice zone. It's not a crazy zone. I think, you know, again, it could be one of those things where it's C tier, but I'm gonna put it in B tier. All right, moving on. We have Central Park. Oh gosh, I think this is very dependent on what deck you're playing. For me, most of the time I hate it. Now if you're running like Killmonger, Lady Death, and killing all those squirrels will lead to death's cooldowns being reduced, you know, again, it's very situational, but like let's just say on average I hop into a game and I see Central Park, it's annoying. Unless you have a way to compensate to juice up the squirrel's power, and then your opponent doesn't, all right, cool. If you have ways to destroy them and then maybe it's going to benefit your deck that destroys cards, cool. But on average, when I hop into a game and I see Central Park, I'm usually like, and I'm like so thankful when my opponent plays a Killmonger and I don't have one. All right, you know, first F tier. More often than not, it annoys me, but I do understand in certain situations it's quite beneficial. Cloning Vats, easy A tier. Not as crazy as Bar Sinister because you're not duplicating it all onto the same zone right from the very get-go, same turn. But with Cloning Vats, it's still kind of nice though. When you play a card, you add a copy to your hand. So the benefit of this, let's say you want to copy a card, but you don't want to completely fill out a zone like with Bar Sinister. You can go and just keep copying in your hand, maybe place it in other zones there, and then maybe clone a different card. I like the possibility of that and being able to clone some really powerful cards that control the field or get high power on. I'm a big fan of it. You know, now I'm thinking about, do I like Bar Sinister or Cloning Vats? Right? Bar Sinister is like, once you put a card there, you're kind of stuck in that location. Cloning Vats, you have the flexibility. I mean, boy, if I had to pick, maybe I'd like, it depends on the play. It depends on the play. But I think on average, Cloning Vats is probably a bit more flexible. Collapsed Mine. Fill this location with rocks, skip a turn to destroy your rocks. So I have not played against this one. This one might be one of those like soft launches, maybe previous season before I started playing. Sounds annoying though, but all you do is got to skip a turn. So how I could see this being beneficial, like let's just say Infinite. Now, normally when you play Infinite, you don't want to skip out on turn. You want to bring Infinite in some other way, whether it's Ghost Rider or using Zero, whatever the case might be, and then you play him. But let's say all hope is lost, and you have these rocks, you still have Infinite, you skip a turn, you clear the zone, you place Infinite in that zone, right? I tend to not like zones like these, which, but we're gonna put it in, I'll put it in D tier. It's you can work around it. It's not the end of the world. Sometimes you're just gonna skip a turn because you don't have a good card in your hand to play. Counter Earth. When you play a card here, create a copy at this location. This is another one. It's kind of like a Bar Sinister cloning vat. I personally have not seen this zone in action. Again, could be an older one. The artwork looks pretty old on here as well. Create a copy at this location. You know, I'm gonna say let's go put this. When it says at this location, I wonder if it plays on the enemy side. If it plays on the enemy side, that could be good or bad. Just for sake of not playing the zone, I'm just putting the seeds here. I can see where it could be good, but without seeing all the mechanics, I don't know. Crimson Cosmos. Some people hate this zone. It doesn't bother me that much. All it means that the first few opening plays, you can't play anything there most likely, unless you have a 0 power card, unless you have negative powered cards, then you can kind of squeeze in there on the earlier side of things. It is a little bit annoying though. Let's say, especially those early plays, you want to put Ant-Man in there or whatever, you can. For me, I'll put it in D tier. Not crazy about it. It's not like a crazy fun zone. It's more of it's a minor inconvenience at best, I feel like. Crystal Tower, shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 3 cards. This sounds like a Tillin. So I'm assuming, is that basically a Tillin? All right, let's go put it. It's a little bit different. This is on turn 4. It's a slightly different there. Moving on, we have Daily Bugle. Oh man, ultimate RNG. You don't know when this is going to show up. So if it shows up turn 3, turn 2, turn 1, whatever the case might be, and let's see if it got to your hand, whatever it might be, and then your opponent gets a copy of it. Oh man, is that the worst? And you get some garbage card out of them. So it's going to depend on what side of the field you're going to be on. I typically don't care for Daily Bugles. Sometimes I get something amazing. If they have a leader, like before I had leader, this was nice to get someone's leader on those oddball situations. It's kind of basically a white queen. It's a white queen at the end of the day for both you and your opponent. Daily Bugle. C tier. It can be hit or miss. You don't know what you're gonna get, and I think at the minimum it gives you a heads up on what your opponent's about to do. Oh man, Danger Room. Woo, Danger Room. Cards played have a 25% chance to be destroyed. Oh man. So destroy rooms are kind of interesting because normally your mind gravitates to, oh man, I don't want to destroy this card, so you don't use it. But some decks really benefit from that off chance you destroy. It's like Magic throwing a Deadpool in there. They destroy themselves, they come back more powerful than ever before. But sometimes you play cards that you really need to be there. Final play, and they just get destroyed. D tier? D tier? Yeah, just on average. Again, it depends deck by deck basis. On average, I don't look forward to it. Dark Dimension. Oh, Dark Dimension's... all these are so hit or miss. Dark Dimension. You can't show any cards until the very last turn. And sometimes that puts a lot of anxiety to people. Maybe they have Wong, and then they're going to start hitting Black Panther, and you're not going to see before it's too late. Like, oh, shoot, I wish I would have put a Cosmo there. That's kind of the big risk with playing Dark Dimension. I never get excited when I see Dark Dimension. I don't hate it. It's one of those things you got to be worried about. Let's put it at C tier. Man, I need some more A and B tiers. Death Still main. Boy. Destroy stuff, again, it depends. I like, Altar of Death, being able to get Electro out and just get him off the field. It's kind of an upside to it. It's gonna vary deck by deck. On average though, you know what? On average, let's just say the average deck out there, it's a little bit annoying. It's workable. You can just easily spawn cards into that other side there. Play Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister gets deleted, but the clone still stays there. It's a workable zone. It's not one that I'm always highly excited for. All right, D tier. Man. I feel so I don't know if I'm negative. It's just there's certain zones like I'm keeping A and B's for the zones I get really excited about. Unlike District X is F tier. The thing I hate about District X and other type of things out there is when I'm playing a card game, I want to at least use the cards and deck that I built. I don't want to use random cards out there. That's not what these card games are about. It's usually one of those random ones where I don't like it. I'm not gonna elaborate much. I hate cards like this. I hate the zones like that. I mean, Dream Dimension. Turn 5 cards cost 1 more. Now, if you have those situations where you get the +1 energy, it's not that big of a problem. So your 5 cost cards, you can still access them. It's a zone that it hinders you for the most part. I'd say on average, I'd probably put that in a D tier. Ego, gosh, F tier. The only thing I like about Ego is the title. Ego, take the wheel. I would love to get that title with Ego. Ego takes over, plays your cards. No, thank you. Again, I want to play my deck. I want to play my deck, and I want to actually play them, not someone else. So, geez, I hate this one with a burning passion. They always do the worst plays possible. But you know, sometimes they get it right, and then your opponent gets a bad Ego run, and whatever. Elysium, I love Elysium. Again, when I'm playing with my cards, I want to get as many onto the field as possible. So if I could start playing 6 powered cards in the last run, that'd be great. Cards cost 1 less. I love Elysium. It's a lot of fun. Maybe I'm being too generous. A tier might not be appropriate. B tier at minimum, but my initial reaction was A tier. All right, moving on. Eternity Range. After turn 3, add a rock to the losing player's side. Oh man, this is one I have not played. Rocks are annoying. They're manageable. Again, you can easily clear them out with Killmonger, whatever the case might be. But yeah, boy, that just sounds like it could be a little bit annoying. If you're winning, it's kind of nice because if they don't have any way of clearing it out, they're kind of screwed. Put it in D tier. Fisk Tower. Fisk Tower, I feel like on average, I'll put it in C tier just because on average it doesn't really make a drastic impact on gameplay. It really, at the minimum, is going to affect cards that move, whether you intended or not intended. So let's say you put arrow there, someone plays in zone 3, they move it into zone 1. That's going to really annoy your opponent. So I think on average, it's not a zone that really worries me that much. But if cards that move intentionally or unintentionally, that's where the big money's coming in. Flooded. Boy. Flooded doesn't come up too often, of course, unless you're Storm and you just throw it in there. Flooded, you know, it's a risk. It's a race to the finish. You better hope you put some good power cards there, or you can move like things like Vision or whatever or put it, you know, moving later on if possible. Flooded, actually, you know, it's such a, yeah, you just can't. Cards can't be played here. Yeah, okay. I'll put it in D tier. Same thing. Flooding's the same thing, right? This is the last turn cards can be played here. Yeah, it's basically the same exact thing. Fogwell's Gem. What do we have here? Both players' card get double XP this game. I would love that. I don't see that one. Man, that would be great if they have it. Again, that helps progress it, but progresses things in a positive manner. Yeah, I haven't seen that one. I would love that. Just more ways. I'm guessing it's called the boosters it's talking about. We don't really have XP. I guess it's the boosters. Maybe they're talking about credit. I don't see that. Must be a really early one. Gamma Lab. I like Gamma Lab. You know, sometimes, you know, you want to, again, play Electro. You want to play, you know, all these early cards, Scorpion, Ant-Man, cards that don't have a lot of power. If you can put a lot of stuff in here really quickly, turn them into Hulk, and your opponent had less, you feel pretty good. Be cautious, though. Some people just need one Hulk, and then they play Shang-Chi. Gamma Labs cleared out, and they pretty much won that zone at that point. Free Hulks are never a bad thing, but with great power comes great Shang-Chi, my friend. Grand Central, after turn 5, put a card from each player's hand here. Hit or miss. Hit or miss. Sometimes you get something good, sometimes you get something bad, and it just completely ruins your play. Like, for example, I was playing Galactus, and I didn't want to put any card in there. I didn't have any way to get my Galactus to be cheaper to play it earlier on like turn 4 or turn 5. And this could really ruin your run if you're placing a card here at the wrong moment, at the wrong time. But sometimes you get a free card, calling in a free Hulk and free Infinite. That's always a great play. I think it's very hit or miss. Hela, man, I'm not crazy about Hela. It's hella annoying sometimes. After turn 4, destroy all cards controlled by the player losing here. Usually, in my opinion, I feel like most kind of avoid this zone. And they just kind of read the room. If they feel like they're behind, they're just going to kind of avoid it. So if you're someone maybe that's making some good momentum here, I can see that being beneficial. On average, though, when I see Hela, it's like, okay, it's a little annoying to work with. Hellfire Club, 1-cost cards can't be played here. Oh man, I'm gonna put in the same rank as Crimson Cosmos. It's a very minor inconvenience. It's not that big of a deal. And sometimes you could just move something there, or you could cheapen the cost of something, or increase the cost of something. Yeah, it's not a big deal. It's not a crazy one. Hell's Kitchen, I'll give it a B. You know, draw 1-cost card from hand. I love more ways of getting cards into my hand. It's always nice to get for the most part. So not mad about that. It's not a God tier one, but it's definitely above average, I think. Hell's Kitchen's like, all right, cool. That's nice to see. Oh man, Isle of Silence. Ongoing effects are disabled here. It depends on the deck you're playing, right? It truly depends on the deck you're playing. So this, I keep pulling up Electro. I don't know why. I feel like Electro's, I think the reason I bring up Electro, because Electro's one of those things, like you really want to hope you get a really good zone. With Isle of Silence, if you play Electro, you get the reveal effect, getting the extra energy. but you don't have to worry about the ongoing effect. So I think it really depends on what's going on. Let's say you played an ongoing card a little too early and then Isle of Silence shows up, reveals itself. You're kind of screwed. So it's going to be a little bit hit or miss. It's not the end of the world, though. But if your deck is mostly an ongoing based deck, get wrecked. Jotunheim. Oh, man. Let's put a D tier. For every turn of cards there, it's going to lose 1 power. Generally, what happens is people just don't place cards there until the very last turn or close to the last turn. Because if you're playing a 1-cost card early, well, you're just going to be like -5 by the time you get to the final round. So you got to be careful what cards you put there. The more power card is, the less risky it is. But on average, I do find Jotunheim a little bit annoying. Kamar-Taj, easily A tier. It could be S tier if we had an S tier category. If you're running Wong, it is a pretty much guaranteed win so long as Cosmo doesn't come and ruin the party over at Kamar-Taj. Just being able to constantly doing double the on reveal effects is pretty great. Sometimes you see people do the early Scorpion, Iceman plays, but Wong is the obvious one that can make a really big difference. You're already activating the on reveal effects like twice with Wong. Now do it again with Kamar-Taj. Man, Black Panther, Wong in this zone, nasty stuff. Clintar, I'm not like crazy about Clintar. Clintar, the way I see Clintar, is it's mostly meant to be kind of a space saving thing. It's just a merge. It's not destroying the cards. So the cards are still there. You're just freeing up space. So if you're putting a lot of cards there, all right, you can merge them all turn 4, then you can keep placing cards there. So it's nothing crazy. Certain decks do benefit from that a little bit. Like, you know, one thing I do see a lot, like people love when you can merge so many cards in there and then you get Venom on there to kind of eat up whatever cards there. So it depends on what deck you're playing, I think. But overall, I'm not crazy about it. Nowhere, basically the inverse of Isle of Silence, where on reveal effects do not happen at this location. So inverse of Kamar-Taj as well. You're not going to get as much action. So again, it depends on the deck you're playing, but sometimes you don't want to worry about the on reveal effects when you're placing down a card. So it truly depends on the deck you're playing. So I'm going to put it there just because it's in the same category as Isle of Silence. Krakoa on turn 6 takes over and plays both players' cards. So it's basically an Agatha late game ego or something like that. Not a fan of it. I'm going to put it in that category. Kunlun, it's not a very exciting zone. When a card moves there, they get +2 power. Again, I think it really depends on the deck you're playing. If you're playing, I think it really mostly benefits cards that move. So if you're playing, you know, Human Torch, Multiple Man, something of that sort, you don't want to put arrow cards in there usually. I mean, unless you want to bring arrow to bring a card over, increase the power, then Shang-Chi can maybe destroy them. Again, situation, but more often than not, doesn't get me excited. Kiln, this one locks up after turn 4. Still, you can still, you know, squeeze yourself in there. Man, I think just because it's kind of similar to some of these other things like Flood, I'm gonna put it here. It really depends how fast you get blitz stuff in there, or you know, sometimes you know your opponents. The thing to think about is when people are focused on getting to those zones, they're neglecting the other zones. So let's say you don't need that zone. Let them rush into that zone. You're gonna focus on the areas that are probably gonna matter more in the course of the game. So it's not that great of a zone. Lamentis one, I hate it. I want to play my deck. I don't want my deck to be obliterated. I remember when Lamentis was the zone of the week or whatever it was, their featured zone. My gosh, every single game, it's like, man, I just want to play with my deck. Not a fan of it. I want to play my deck. Lequila. I never know how to say this. Lequila. When you play a card or shuffle through rocks, I avoid this like a plague. I generally don't want to put rocks in my deck. Rocks ruin your probability of getting the cards you want inside of your deck. So generally, I'm not playing there until I know I have a secure hand that I know I can win with, or I'm already winning the game and it's last turn. Otherwise, I try to avoid that. Unless you want something that maybe increases the amount of cards in your deck. Not on average, I'm not a fan of it. Lemuria. I find Lemuria to be a little bit annoying, to be honest. When I'm playing a card, I want to use the effects right away. Some decks, of course, you might maybe want to wait a turn. You want to kind of that little turn of mystery. But generally, I kind of just, on average, when I play a card, I just want to reveal it. You know, a Scorpion that's being delayed to the next turn does mean not as much good as a Scorpion maybe turn 1 potentially, or, you know, fill in the blanks, whatever you think. So I'm not crazy about it. Limbo. Oh, I put this in B tier. On average, I'd say it's sometimes nice to get that extra turn. Get it, like, you know, turn 6 is big play. Imagine getting an even bigger play. But sometimes your opponent might need that extra turn to get the win over you. So it could be a situation, but I think on average, I do quite like Limbo. Los Diablos base, I think that's like a staple C tier. It can destroy a zone you hate, Like, imagine Los Diablos just blowing Ego out of the water. Thank you. Los Diablos blowing away one of the Sinister locations. I hate you. I'll put it there. I think that's a good one. Moving on, we have Luke's Bar. This one, it's a little bit annoying. When you play a card, it returns to your hand. So you have to somehow play cards there that maybe spawn a clone, or that maybe can move in there. It is a little bit cumbersome to work with. It adds an interesting mental gymnastic, a puzzle to work in there. Machine World, I don't like Machine World. I mean, the only time Machine World kind of seems nice is when you want to just really put some really trashy cards in your player's hand, fill their hand up to 7, and then they can't draw anymore because they're already at the cap at 7. So I think it's going to depend on the situation they have, but generally folks seem to avoid that one. Mindscape, oh man, hate it. I want to play my deck, not theirs, the opponent's. That is on turn 6 we swap hands. Sometimes it works out. Let's say you have a weak turn 6, you swap, they have leader and all these other stuff. All right, cool, we're gonna win. On average though, I hate Mindscape here. Miniaturized Lab, mostly an inconvenience thing, but yeah, it's mostly, yeah, there we go. It can't be added there. So the problem is you can't like move cards in there. It's locked out for literally several turns, which is kind of an annoying situation to deal with. Now, if you're the one that's moving the momentum and you're locking it down, the opponent, they have to hope on turn 6 they got it. So on the roughest is usually when someone's playing a card in that zone early on and you don't see the zone yet. Turn 3 it reveals, the opponent's already got a head start and you're kind of screwed. So that's kind of an issue there. Mirror Dimension, I think that's also a staple like C tier. It's gonna just on turn 4 it's gonna transform into one of the other locations. So it depends. It can transform into a zone that you hate. Imagine 2 Sanctum Sanctorums. Wow, limiting the play space you could work with. But imagine, you know, duplicating Cloning Vats or Bar Sinister, Gamma Lab. You know, things get a little bit more interesting. Or actually, it wouldn't matter on Gamma Lab because that's turn 3 in Gamma Lab, turn 4 for Mirror Dimension or Kamar-Taj. It's gonna depend, I think. Mojo's World, I feel like it's bait. I'll put it in B. It's not A tier. Sometimes it could be very nice. Let me explain one situation. So opponents sometimes like to charge for the zone, fill it up fast, and they feel like, huh, I have 4 cards there. I'm already ahead. I get plus 100 power because I filled up the zone. I have more cards. But then you only have 1. One of my favorite plays I did was last turn. I saw there was an inevitable tie in the other zones, but I got in there. I destroyed one of their cards, and then I had plus 100 over them because I filled it up. I had more cards than they did. And I won by a tiebreaker, but I had the more power in this zone. So it's going to depend. I feel often not, this is more bait, because if each side has 4 cards, then it just comes down to whoever has the more power in that zone. But sometimes it can make a really nice difference. So I think that's a pretty solid spot for it. Monster Island, I don't get mad. But I'm also not excited because we both get a 9. It's mostly, the way I view it's kind of like a rock or a squirrel. It's occupying my space. Luckily, it's a decent powered card. A Shang-Chi could easily clear it out if they have one and I don't. I think that's the best play. If you have a Shang-Chi and they don't, you know you're going to be ahead 9 points because you're going to keep the dino. They're not, or the monster. Monster Metropolis. This one, I think, no, that's Monster Island. The card with the highest power wins +3. It's not horrible. It's not an exciting one, but if you have the high power card, you can maybe, that extra 3 points could make the difference. That means if you had a 12 power card, they had 11, you know, you'll get a 15 power card, and maybe it could be the difference between a win or a loss. Morag, I believe that's a bit newer that we have. You can't play your first card here each turn. You got to pay the toll, as Morag likes to say. I'd say it's a little bit annoying, not impossible. It's not, if you're playing a really cheap deck, it's really not a problem. You know, you play a 1 power there, 1 power, or 1 cost here, 1 cost there. It's, if you have a deck that has more higher cost cards, this is where the problem could be because you're gonna have a hard time reaching that zone. So I think it's mostly situational. It is a mild, and I think the way to phrase is D is mild inconvenience, C is no inconvenience, and B and A are where I feel like I'm actually getting a benefit out of it. I think that's probably a better way to rank this now that we're several minutes into this video here. Motherworld, didn't play a Carter, add a Sentinel to your hand. I haven't seen this one. I think it's gonna be it's gonna depend. It's not a horrible thing. Yeah, I haven't seen that one. Mirror Island, I'll put that in B tier. The earlier you get on this island, the better. The later you get in, usually the worse, because as you're in there every single turn, you're getting +1 power. However, don't get cocky. Just because you maybe got a lot of cards there that have been accruing power, interest, as I like to sometimes refer, they're getting interest. Shang-Chi just shows up and maybe blows away your low-powered cards that turn into high-powered cards. Usually I'd say that it's not going to be too much of a concern, but generally I think it's mostly a benefit that we have. Murder World, mostly situational. if you have cards that you want to be destroyed in the destroy deck, like, you maybe want to throw Deadpool in there, maybe you want to throw Sabretooth in there, ways to artificially kill off cards, it could be nice. I'll put this in D tier. I'd say on average it could be annoying. Or imagine you place the card in Murder Zone and against your will it shows up and it's like, ah, crap, what a rough day. Cards here have -2 power. The thing about this, I feel like it doesn't make a huge I think it depends. If you can place cards that don't have their power reduced, that might be nice, but most cards don't have ways to address reduction of power. So that means all the cards there on average are going to be -2 power. So if I had a 4 and they had a 5, okay, I'll be at 2, they'll be at 3. It's the same amount of difference. So I think it just depends if you could multiply effects. So one thing I do like is if you could throw in Hobgoblin over there and maybe somehow they amplify the power on that to be like maybe -20, if there's a way to do that, yeah, maybe it could be beneficial. On average though, I don't find it to be very exciting. Negative Zone cards here have -3 power, kind of the same drill. It's very similar. One is -2, one is -3. Yeah, I'm just gonna put it there. It's unless you have ways to get to stop the power and your opponent doesn't, that's nice. Or you have ways to amplify or make use out of negative power cards. It's mostly on average, it's gonna be the same. New York. Most times it's like, all right, cool, not a big issue. Sometimes you need that extra flexibility to fit into a zone that maybe you thought you could win if you move some stuff over. Mostly beneficial to move decks. It's not an exciting zone, but if you're running like a move deck with multiple man, Human Torch, yada yada yada, Heimdall, this is gonna be a lot of fun. I think it really benefits that deck. The other ones are just more like, all right, I want to rearrange my cards a little bit. Nidavellir. Cards here have +5 power. All right, this one leaves me sometimes a little perplexed. It's not like Shuri's crib where she can like actually increase the power and then you can move it to a different zone. The problem I have with this is that, again, kind of like these other, there might be an aspect I'm missing to it. I think to be fair, I'm going to put it here. It's kind of the similar thing with the Encroaching Negative Zone and Nidavellir. If we're all getting +5, it should be roughly the same. The thing to watch out for is if you're increasing cards power, you can run into a Shang-Chi problem or whatever the case might be. So I think it's situational. Nova Roma. I like Nova Roma. Draw a card. Again, if I can get more cards in my hand, try to get a better play, I'm not mad at it. Easily beats here. Draw 2 cards. You know what? Let's do it. Olympia. I want to get more cards. I like it. You know what? Nova Roma and them, probably the same category, but no, Olympia is a little bit better. Getting more cards into your hand is nice. Unless your hand's already full and you're like, oh crap, my opponent probably got more cards than I did. Onslaught Citadel. There we go. Now we're getting to the ones I really like. Onslaught Citadel. Again, it's going to be situational. If you play Onslaught, wow. Yay! What a thought. That's going to be most beneficial, but Devil Dino, other cards that have some great ongoing effects could be a lot of fun in that location. I feel like maybe I'm being too generous. I think it's a little all right, let's knock it down to B. It depends. If you're not playing ongoing cards, it's not gonna make a no, I gotta be fair. It's the same as Kamatage. Okay, all right, I feel better now. Oscorp Tower. After turn 3, all cards here swap sides. So most times I'd say it's kind of it doesn't bother us. We just don't play cards there and nothing swaps. Sometimes though, if you could play like, I don't know, a card that is on the negative side, so let's say Red Hood, right? Is that his name? I always forget his name. He's -1, right? Well, you place it and then you're gonna give it to your opponent. They're down and they're losing that zone. So it depends. It's not an annoying zone, but I figured it might be kind of safe to play it there. Pleasant Hill. I don't think I have that one. When you play a card here, draw a card. I haven't seen that one. Maybe I didn't because I haven't seen it. Let's see. When you play a card here, draw a card. All right, I'll put that in B tier if I had to rank that one. Plunder Castle. Only cards that cost 6 can be played here. Oof. The problem is this, if you jacked up, yeah, it could be hit or miss. Like, you won't be able to play cards like Death most likely in there. Eesh. I'm gonna put this in the same vein as Crimson Cosmos. I think it's gonna be D tier. It's gonna come down to who's gonna have the better 6 cost card. They're on their Project Pegasus. I love Project Pegasus. Being able to just get 5 energy that turn. Just, I've been screwing out the Galactus stack recently. If I can get that, I just play Galactus right away. It's sometimes fun, even though usually Galactus, you don't want to prematurely throw cards on. All right, we'll throw it in there. I love it though. In general, it's just nice to be able to maybe just do a big play, turn 1. And sometimes you might not want to fall for the bait. You might not want to show your big plays because your opponent can find ways to work around it later on. Quantum Realm. When you play a card or set its power to 2, I haven't seen this one in action. Yeah, I haven't seen this one. I'm gonna put it in D tier though. Yeah, again, probably I should. You know what? I haven't seen it. I'm gonna put it in C tier. That might be a little bit more fair. Rickety Bridge. After each turn, if there's more than one card to destroy them. Oh man. I'm gonna put it in D. It depends. If you're running a destroy deck, I think this could be a lot of fun, just making them keep falling through the bridge. Otherwise, I can see that being really annoying. You want to be really careful what goes on there. Runes is the ideal C tier. You know, it's nothing. It's just basic. There's nothing special going on in there. Moving on, Sakar, just randomly putting a card from each player's hand. On average, I'd say it's probably a C tier. If you can get the good stuff, nice. If you don't get the good stuff out, well, that sucks. And that's happened to all of us. Sanctum Sanctorum, on average, it's annoying. When I see it, it's like, ah, gosh, we got to find a way to get in there. Sometimes you just don't have any way of getting in there. You better hope you have vision. You better hope you have Nightcrawler. Someone that can just squeeze through the gaps and skid into that Sanctorum. Otherwise, it's mostly annoying. Savage Land, where did I put Squirrel Girl? I'm going to do the same thing. Central Park, putting a squirrel in each location. It's not as bad as Squirrel Girl because it's only one location where you're going to spawn the dinos or raptors, I should say, in that area. You can get rid of them. Killmonger, maybe Falcon can, you know, bring them back into your hand or whatever the case might be. Yeah, I feel all right with that. Sewer cards here have -1 power. So again, same vein as the Crochet Negative Zone, just a smaller version of it. Most of the time, it's like, why? It's not like that big of a problem. There hasn't been a lot of times where those zones make a difference because it's mostly the same. I don't know. It is what it is. Shadowland, add ninjas with -2 power. I'm gonna put that in the same vein as this. It's annoying. It's manageable, but it's mostly annoying to deal with here. Shuri's Lab. Oh boy, I like Shuri's Lab a lot. Shuri's Lab is kind of what I wanted Nidavellir to be like. You know what? I'm gonna put Shuri's Lab. That's the A tier. Man, doubling the power. This really is great for cards that can move around. You know, you place it down, doubles the power, move it to a different location. This, I do like it a lot. Even if you're not running move deck, it's a lot of fun. Sinister London, easily A tier. I love all the Sinister locations. When you play a card here, add a copy to another location. Oh man, those are a lot of fun. If you can put a Cosmo one area, Cosmo in the other area, and your opponent's playing mostly unrevealed cards, they're gonna hate you. Sokovia, kind of the inverse of the other zones that give you a card. Destroy discard a card from each player's hand. I'm gonna say on average, it's a garbage zone. I hate it. Now, if you're playing a discard deck and you maybe hit Apocalypse, well, you got lucky. That's nice and all. But I'd say most decks probably you don't want to do it. You don't know if they're going to get rid of the most important one. Stark Tower. It could be B tier. After turn 5, everyone gets +2 power. So again, you kind of want to make sure you're there at turn 5. Get the free giveaways from the multi-billionaire philanthropists. You know the usual. Get the free handouts. On average, I'd say, all right, cool. It's nice to know. Starlight Citadel. Oh gosh, this guy here. After turn 4, swap the position of each location. This one's risky, man. This is like ultimate RNG. If let's say the zone moves and it gives you Sanctum Sanctorum, and you're like, oh man, look, I have all these cards in there now. It could be great. I'd say on average, I worry about Starlight Citadel. I think that's probably the best way to put it. Strange Academy. Oh boy, I'm gonna put that there. Yeah, I think at the end of turn 5, all cards are moved to other random locations. When you're in turn 5 going to turn 6, you probably don't want to randomize things and have to like reevaluate. Sometimes it's good. It can get you into locations that are locked out, and you maybe can somehow get like, you know, a high powered car into a zone that's normally off limits. It's gonna depend. I'd say on average though, I'm giving it a D. Subterranean, I hate it. I don't like rocks. They're coarse, they're rugged, and they ruin my day. Bifrost. On average, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me on average. Again, if you're running a move deck, it's great. After turn 4, you're moving all cards one location to the right. Then imagine you play Heimdall, you're going to move them back over to the left. So if you're playing a move deck, that's a really great zone. Sometimes you want to use it even if you're not moving. You just maybe squeeze into a zone that normally you can't access. On average, it doesn't bother me. But some zones, it could be great. The Big House, I'm going to put this in the same vein as Crimson Cosmos. It's a little annoying to deal with. It's, you know, not getting the high powered cards in there, but sometimes, you know, it could be great. Like, you know, Death, I've been playing a lot with Death, and if I can make her 0 power or 0 cost, I mean, you could squeeze her in there. Likely your opponent's not going to have a 1, 2, 3 card cost that has that much power. So it's going to depend, but on average, it's a little bit annoying. Hub, it's not bad. You know, you get a random card. Sometimes you get something good, sometimes you don't. It's not the best, but you know, usually I appreciate it showing up. You know, so you might get something you're not expecting. Icebox, little bit annoying. Yeah, definitely a little bit annoying. The icebox random card gets their cost increased by 1. So especially like the 5 card cost, if they go to 6, that really, because turn 5 I think is the most important play, to be honest, because it leads you into turn 6 and gets into that final end game and it sets you up for the win or loss. So if you have a 5 card cost to turn to the 6, that sucks. Nexus, I generally like Nexus. With Nexus, your power here is granted all of the locations as well. So you want to kind of make sure you're saving your best powered cards in there. You can ignore all the other zones sometimes, but if you can last second get it in there, man, that's could make a big deal. On average, I think I do like Nexus. The peak, I think it depends. I'd say on average, it depends on the deck. On average, I like the peak. Maybe I'm biased. I think it's always fun when I was first starting off when Iron Man turns into a 0 cost card. And then he has 5 power. That's like the best like transformation right there for a card. The power ratio, or cost the power ratio. I'll put it there. I think that's all right. The Raft, another one of those zones that I'm gonna put it here. Sometimes you get a little too risky. You go for the zone like, yeah, I got a free 6 power card or 6 cost card, but at the same time you might lose that zone because you're quickly running it and now you left yourself vulnerable. It's not bad. It's probably closer to B if I had to like put them in between, but I think I'm gonna put it in the C tier. Space Throne, oh man, you know what? I'm gonna put this in B tier. It can make a huge difference. Everyone's kind of leaving that zone, or let's say there's 3 situations. One, it's like zone 2 or zone 3. Someone already placed the card without knowing the zone. They're screwed. You won. Option number 2, everyone leaves it open for until like turn 5, turn 6. And on turn 5, you throw a Hobgoblin over there. They're screwed. You won. And turn 3, you know, it just comes down to who's got the bigger bad boy and throws it in there. So I'd say it's a solid B. On average, I'm like, ooh, okay. I'm looking forward to what this is gonna look like. Superflow, I love Superflow. Put that in A tier. What am I doing? A tier Superflow. When you have no cards there, you're getting +1 energy each turn. It's easy to manipulate your opponents to put some stuff in there. Maybe throw a rock into their location with debris. Maybe throw in the Hobgoblin, Green Goblin into the location. They're not getting energy, but you are. Or just in general, it's just nice when we're getting extra energy and we can play more of our better, more fun cards onto the field a little bit earlier. Easy, I think. The Triskelion. Oh gosh, this is the one where they, yeah, random cards in each player's hand. I'd say on average, I hate this zone. Sometimes you get some good cards, but again, when I'm playing a deck, I want to use what I made, right? I don't want to use random cards I didn't pick out. So I think, all right, yeah, I'll put it in there. Volt, on turn 6, cards can't be played here, but you can still move cards in there. On average, I'd say I'll put it into Kiln. It's kind of the same deal. Yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world. It just means your turn 5 generally has to be really strong in that location. I think that's really what it means. Throne Room. Cards with the highest power have their power doubled. So this could be great. If you have cards all the same power, geez, and your opponent doesn't, that's gonna be a massive advantage in your favor. Or just putting a really high power card that they can't meet and you're gonna get double the power. And then if there's a tie, you can win by a huge margin. I'd say on average, Throne Room is interesting and it could be helpful. But there are times, again, situationally, where it could go against you. Tinker's Workshop, +1 energy this turn. Not as crazy as Project Pegasus. I'll put it in B tier. Again, 1 energy sometimes makes all the difference in your gameplay. Titan, I like Titan a lot. I like being able to play my 6 cost cards even earlier, making them cost less. That's great. I think it's an easy A tier for me. TVA, I hate TVA. This game is not really designed for 4 turns. It makes you really appreciate how powerful turn 5, turn 6 are. Usually with TVA, I always get the comment that the opponent hits. It's not a fun one. It's mostly an annoying one, that's for sure. Vibranium Mines, not as bad as where is it at? Lucagula. It's still a little bit annoying. Again, the problem is shuffling Vibranium in your deck. Luckily, it's more valuable, more power than a rock, but it's an inconvenience when you're ruining your probabilities of getting the card you want. Vormir. Oh man, I'm gonna put Vormir in. You know what? This actually might be controversial. I like Vormir. It's all right on average. I think Vormir is okay, mainly because sometimes you like destroy cards, or sometimes your opponent's ignoring that zone, and then it's turn 6, and you know they still haven't sacrificed the card. before playing something there. On average, when I see Vormir, I'm not mad. It's a mild mental gymnastics I got to work around, and it could be a lot of fun. Wakandan Embassy, B tier. It depends. If you had the right cards there, you get the +2 power. If you don't have the right cards, it's like, well, that kind of sucks. Yeah, I think B tier is pretty suitable for that one. Wakanda cards cannot be destroyed here. On average, it's fine. It's really only a detriment if you need to destroy someone's cards or you need to destroy your own cards. And let's say you set up the whole Nova, and you set up maybe Wolverine, whatever the case might be, and then you bring in Carnage, and it's like, oh shoot, I can't now. It's Wakanda. It's gonna depend. On average, it's not a very controversial thing. Warrior Falls, though, it could be a little controversial. Sometimes it could be beneficial playing a weak power card and you want it to get destroyed, or playing a card that's maybe got mostly negative. Bring out Electro. Put out Electro. You want that card to be destroyed. So it's great putting Electro and you place a more powerful card, or they have a more powerful card. They destroy it. You get the free +1 energy. So there's ways where Warrior could be helpful. On average, I feel like most people ignore this zone until the last second. Washington, D.C., that's a rather uninteresting zone unless you're playing like the Patriot decks where you're playing a lot of cards. They have no abilities on them. It's mostly situational. I'd say on average, honestly, I don't quite like it because it's a nothing zone to me. It just depends on the deck. I think C tier's all right. Weird World, trash! Hate this one. Same vibe. I don't want to draw or use or play the opponent's deck. I hate it. There's not much need to explain. I've already explained myself. Westview, transformed to a new location, basically a Scarlet Witch. It's a hit or miss. Sometimes you get something great, Project Pegasus. Maybe you get the Superflow, whatever it might be, Bar Sinister. Sometimes you might get Ego. It all depends. World Ship, it's basically Galactus. Destroy all the other locations. Catch you by surprise sometimes. I think the worst is when it's like turn 1. Oh, hey, World Ship, I guess we know what this game's gonna be like. Or it's turn 3, and it's like, oh, there's World Ship. There's all my cards destroyed. I'd say on average, if you're playing Galactus, obviously you want something like that when you're activating it. You know, I'm gonna say on average, most don't want this to happen. Yeah. X-Mansion, I think it's an ultimate C tier. You might get a great card. Your opponent might get a horrible card, vice versa, or it's just going to clog up space that you need to place something else in there. It's a high RNG. I think it's one of the ultimate casino zones. And then Xandar cards here are +1 power. So again, kind of the same vein as Necrosha, negative zone, sewer system. When the card leaves, it doesn't get to keep the power. So that's kind of again, that's why I like to separate what Shuri's Lab does, because when you double the power, you can move it somewhere else. It's not just here like these cards. So on average, I'm not particularly crazy about them. And I think, yeah, that's gonna be it. There's a couple of other ones we don't have at the end of turn for whoever's winning here draws 2 cards. Some of these zones I don't think we ranked because they're not in Marvel Snap currently. It could be an earlier build, but on average, that's how I believe. Again, my personal opinion, my personal experience. This is what I believe to be all of the zones ranked in Marvel Snap from best to worst. On average, I just don't like playing cards that ruin my probability of pulling stuff out of my deck, that ruin me using my deck, and also things that kind of overly hinder the zones, in my opinion. But overall, a lot of fun zones. These zones, when I see these zones, mostly B and A, sometimes a C, it's like, okay, got some cool stuff happening. Not crazy about these DNF ones. Let me know down below, what are your favorite zones? Would love to hear it. Which zones make you want to grind your teeth? And most importantly, make sure to like, hit that subscribe button to our ever-growing empire. And always remember that it's great to be in the Empire today. Gary, you gotta play the music. In the Empire today. The sun never sets.